What's up, weirdos? It's Thursday. My name is Sarah, and I am joined, as always, with...
I'm Mackenzie.
I'm Chris.
And this podcast is for weirdos. So, this week, I'm going to be talking to you guys about the Loch Ness Monster. So, the first thing that we want to do is, I just want to ask you guys, what do you think about the Loch Ness Monster? What are your initial thoughts? What do you know? Like, what do you got going on over there?
I adore the Loch Ness Monster. I think from a folkloric standpoint, the Loch Ness Monster is one, though it is inevitably, like, from a single culture, Nessie, in a way, has become multicultural. Like, where people are like, it's the Loch Ness Monster, but it's, like, one of the most well-known folklore cryptid movies.
It's like the big three.
And I think, like, if you're talking about pop culture, too, the Loch Ness Monster is very...
She's in everything.
She's in everything. She's in... There's a whole Scooby-Doo movie about the Loch Ness Monster. There's, like... There's a ton of like, pop culture media.
You know, I'm going to talk about one of them for my... Okay. Have y'all seen Waterworks?
Oh, like, no.
Not in a long time.
I haven't seen it in a long time. It was, like, a fundamental part of my...
Introduction into weirdness.
And, like...
It's a good movie.
Growing of, like, interest in other weird things.
Yeah.
Because in the, like, extra bits on the DVD, they, like, they talked to cryptozoologists.
Yeah.
And they were like, tell us about, like, the search for Nessie. Like, you've been living here on the loch for
seen this.
years.
Yeah, I have seen it.
It's a good movie.
It's a fun movie.
It's a silly movie.
It's so fun.
But
it's fun. Yeah,
like,
super
if you're
fun.
talking about, like, people, I think it's some of the most public printed photo. Like, you see...
And people out of...
It lives in the
here, like, out of the weirdness. People who aren't weirdos, self-proclaimed weirdos, whatever, will know what Nessie is.
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking, like we said, like, big three, Bigfoot, Nessie.
And then probably something local.
And then something
is what we've come up with when we've tried to come up with a big three.
Regardless, Nessie's always there.
Yeah, everyone
always say Nessie.
Everywhere.
Because, I mean, you've got your regional Nessie offshoots.
Yeah.
Which we will probably talk about. Like Champ and stuff like that.
I don't talk about them at all in this, just so y'all are aware.
I'm just saying, like, but like...
Nessie, Chessie, and Champ.
Yeah, we don't talk about Chessie or Champ here.
I
love
them,
saying,
like,
they're not here today.
We have
just Her Majesty.
Her Majesty, the Queen Loch Ness.
The Queen of Scotland.
No, okay. but yeah, I think nothing that I've seen has ever caused me to go, there's no way she doesn't exist.
Got it. Okay, so that leads me into my question. Mackenzie, do you believe in the Loch Ness Monster?
Fuck yeah.
Cool. Chris, do you believe in the Loch Ness Monster?
I want to believe.
Great.
I don't not believe.
Okay.
I am...
You're pleasantly skeptical.
Pleasantly skeptical. I want her to be real so badly.
Yeah. And I think that's so people think that skepticism is not believing in something, but skepticism is, I don't know. That's what skepticism is.
I am a skeptic.
Great.
Most things.
Good. You should be. Skepticism is not a bad thing.
No, I know.
Yeah. All right. Are we ready to get into the actual topic?
I'm ready.
Okay. So the first thing that I want to talk about is why Loch Ness is so, like, the perfect place for a lake monster to exist. Because there's a lot of, like, we're going to talk some lake statistics.
Okay.
I deep dove into...
Tell me about the lake.
The loch herself, into Loch Ness. So we're going to talk some, like, actual sciencey stuff, and then we have some cool mythological origins for the lake. So we're gonna get into it. Loch Ness is 22.5 miles long and 1.7-ish miles wide. So it's a pretty big lake.
Yeah.
Like, for reference, for Galveston's 3 miles wide at the widest and 30 miles long tip to tip. So, like, almost, like, a third of Galveston-ish wide and 2/3 of Galveston long. So pretty decently sized lake. Surface area. It's got an average depth of 433 feet with a max depth of 744 feet, which is a pretty deep fucking lake. It is the second largest loch by depth and surface area, but largest by volume in the British Isles.
Okay.
So it has the most water of any lake in the British Isles. It connects so there's the waterway that goes through Scotland. The Caledonian Canal connects several lochs through Scotland and several rivers, and there are parts of it that are man-made, but most of it is this like natural lakes and river connection from the east to west of Scotland. So it's an important bit of water in this country. It's fresh water, so it's not a salty lake, it's a fresh lake, but it has a really high peat content, which makes the water super duper dark. So the visibility, like, the visibility like 3 feet down is nothing. You can barely see. So a little more about the Caledonian Canal. Only a third of it is man-made. The rest of it is comprised of Loch Ness, Loch Oich, Loch Dochfor, and Loch Lochy, which I did look up how to pronounce those. If I'm wrong, I'm so sorry.
I asked a question.
Yeah.
Can you define what a loch is?
It's a lake.
It's just a lake.
It's the Scottish word for lake.
This is completely surrounded by land.
Yes, it has a river flowing into and out of it, but it is a lake. It's a big lake.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Great Lakes.
Just
to
make sure.
That's a good clarification because there are probably other people who didn't know. There's no such thing as stupid questions because other people probably have the same question as you and are too embarrassed to ask. Mm-hmm. So always ask the question you think might be silly. Mm-hmm. So it's named for the River Ness, which flows out of the north end of the lake. So the lake is kind of positioned cattywampus. And so the north end is also the east end. Named for the River Ness, which flows from the north end, and the word Ness means roaring one. Okay, so now we get into some interesting stuff about the history of the lake. So we've got where the name comes from, like where the name Ness comes from. Mm-hmm. So Dally the Druid enchanted a spring for purity. The well had to be covered at all times or desolation would overtake the land. A lady left the well uncovered because her house was on fire and she was trying to save her baby who was stuck inside the house. So she was getting water from the well, but she left it uncovered, and the well overflowed and filled up the valley, forming the loch. Oh. Locals, surprised by the sudden appearance of a lake in their backyards, shouted, "The Loch Ness on," which means there's a lake now.
Can you give it to us one more time?
The loch is on?
The, T-H-A, Loch Ness, N-I-S, on, A-N-N. There's a loch now. So the Loch Ness on became Loch Ness. So the loch became Loch Ness, N-I-S, which evolved into Loch Ness. So then there's another one that is another origin story for the name of the lake. There is an Irish woman named Deirdre, who was the most beautiful woman of her age. And she was courted by the King of Ulster, whose name was Connachar MacNessa, but she fell for his cousin, whose name was Naas. And the couple fled Scotland and got married on the banks of fled to Scotland. They're from Ireland. Fled to Scotland and got married on the banks of the loch. MacNessa, peeved that his cousin had married the woman that he wanted, killed Naas on the banks of the loch. And so the locals named the loch, the river, and the town Iverness after Naas, even though it all sounds a lot closer to MacNessa, the guy who did the murdering and lost his woman. But it also might have been named after his mother, who was the river goddess Ness. So this guy in this myth is actually a demigod. Spoiler alert, the King of Ulster, MacNessa, might have been the daughter, the son of the river goddess Ness. The Celtic word for Ness may derive from an older word for river, making the river Ness the river, I hate humans, which would also make Loch Ness river lake. So, another origin story for Loch Ness. This is from the website Visit Iverness. So this is like a city on the loch. Says, the loch was created in anger by the Celtic winter queen, the goddess Dark Bera. When her maid Nessa was late to attend to her duties, Barrow raged and transformed Nessa into a river, the River Ness. Nessa eventually managed to escape the confines of the river, stretching to become the deep waters of the loch.
Oh.
I like that one the most.
That's nice.
Yeah. There's less murder. There's less angry men killing other people because of a woman. And the first one's okay, but there's a baby that might get hurt, and that's kind of sad. So we're gonna go with the goddess who cursed her handmaiden to become a river.
Yeah. Is that the king's mother, though?
No, because that was the goddess Ness.
So the winter goddess.
Different lady. Her handmaiden. Was named Nessa.
Ness versus Nessa.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Understood.
Right. And so now we're just gonna talk. These are just some fun facts before we get into Nessie herself.
Yeah,
After this, all Nessie all the time. But right now, here are just some fun records that have been set on the lake, which I thought was kind of interesting when I was reading about the loch. A man named John Cobb died in an attempt to set the water speed record in 1952 when his boat struck an unexplainable wake.
Oh.
Nessie, maybe? Maybe Nessie didn't want this man to go real fast on her lake. She said, slow down. Too fast. There's a speed limit on this lake. Slow down, man. Then we have David Scott Monroe, who was the first person to water ski the length of Loch Ness.
Water ski.
Yeah, he covered the distance down and back in 77 minutes on August 31st, which was yesterday. The anniversary, the anniversary of that was yesterday for us. In 1974 is when he did that. So, oh my God, it's been 50 years. 50 years yesterday.
50 years yesterday.
Wow, which was like, today is September 1st for us. And then last one was Brenda. I couldn't read my own handwriting. Brenda Sherratt, who was the first person to swim the length of the loch. It took 36 hours and 27 minutes, and she did that in July of 1966.
Wow. Hard.
Yeah.
That's really impressive. But that's good. That's cold.
Yeah, good for her.
I would not be about that.
36 hours.
That's a long time to swim.
Yeah.
Oh, her hands are probably really out.
She's pruny. She's pruny beyond belief.
That would not be fun.
Yeah, and then the last thing that we're going to talk about the loch itself is there is a Loch Ness Center and exhibition, which examines natural history and the legend of the Loch Ness. There are monster chasing boats that leave from the center, and it is located on the western shore of the loch. Oh. So if you go visit, you should go there, get on a boat, go look for Nessie.
I like that they call them monster chasing boats.
Yeah. It's not just we're going to go on a tour of the loch. It's we're chasing down a monster. We're going to find her. We're going to chase her down.
You know, I guess they're probably going to tell us. I was like...
Probably. But you can ask anyway.
Have they... Because I know, have the monster chasing boats produced any sort of anomalous photographs or anything that you have found?
None that I will be showing to you guys today.
Okay.
Which, there will be pictures from this episode that we can put on the Instagram. Some are more believable than others. Some are proven to be false. We'll talk about lots of things, but I don't have any specifically from those. The ones that I have are like from newspapers and that kind of stuff.
That's fair.
Okay. So, sightings.
Yes.
We're going to talk, this is from visitscotland.com. This is a quote. I'm going to read it word for word because it's talking about what she looks like. So that way we can kind of see what people might be looking for when they're looking in the water to find this monster. She's long and thin, usually green and with black umps, tail and snake-like head. And she's shy. When she emerges from the water, you can just see her body breaking through the waves. You'll be strangely mesmerized by the sight, and you'll instantly know that you saw her when you spot perfect circles of disturbed water that she leaves behind when she swiftly disappears again to the depths of the loch. And again, that's from visitscotland.com.
Perfect circles is in like because of the like I'm guessing kind of
the way that the ripples come out is very like perfectly circular, even in the waves. All right, so now when do you think the first sighting of Nessie happened that we know about? The first recorded sighting.
1535.
Oh
nope. When do you think?
I was gonna say feel like the 1920s. I feel like a lot of...
How about the year of our Lord, 565 AD?
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah, long ago.
I
Long
thought
time
I was,
ago.
I thought I
You were 1,000 years off. You were closer than Chris.
Yeah. I feel like...
So what's crazy is between 565 AD and 1871, we don't have any recorded sightings. But
the world was in a weird place.
The world was in a weird place, and people did not like to take notes of
for
things
about
that were
1,300 years.
But like it's like
people weren't very literate
mhm.
in
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah.
And
Our first sighting is from a monk, so
and
yeah.
realistically, if you're talking about a monk, that they would be one of the few literate people around. And also, folklore is a usually done by mouth, which means even if people were seeing it, it was probably just being passed like through oral tradition, not in a recorded sense, because they weren't recording much at that time.
No,
recorded history was completely different.
Even
most of the stuff we have written down from that era is going to be from the church, so it's going to be really, really like,
oh, it's a demon.
Yeah, or it's not going to have been written down because it didn't fit with whatever story they were trying to tell. So that's a thing. Okay, so 565, the Irish monk St. Columba came across some locals burying a dead man on the banks of the River Ness. He had been attacked by a, quote, water beast that dragged him under the water, drowning him. Columba sent a member of his traveling party into the river to lure out the beast. The beast approached, but Columba did some Catholic nonsense, and the creature fled as though it were being pulled back by ropes. So no version of this story that I could find said exactly what he did. So that's why I just said he did some Catholic nonsense, because it is not clear what exactly he did.
There was some nonsense.
Some Catholic nonsense, and it made the beast go away. So this story is really contentious because believers point it to be, oh, we have sightings as early as 565 AD, and skeptics point it out as like, this was a story written down by the church. This was, an area that had lots of folklore tradition in that time and before then. It was a time still of like converting and yada yada, and so water beast stories are really, really common as, don't go in the water, keep out of the water isn't safe, because a lot of people couldn't swim.
Yeah.
So skeptics, they point at this as, this is just yet another version of the water beast myth that exists everywhere in the world. Like, everywhere has something that tries to keep you out of the water. That's a mean thing that lives in the water that's going to keep you out of it.
Right.
So who knows if that actually happened. I think it could, but also it's interesting that it's in the river, right? She's not in the loch. She was in the River Ness at this point.
What if she was a babe?
See, that's the thing, right? If she's still alive and it's 565, maybe she was a little guy. Maybe she was just a little guy and couldn't.
Maybe it was a baby that could still.
They could still go in the river.
Of the river.
They could be in the river.
The lake. For me, Nessie is never I've never viewed Nessie as like a violent creature.
Yeah, I feel like we don't know what. It just says that the beast appeared in the story. And it also, we don't know what actually drowned that guy. Yeah. Maybe he just drowned and Nessie was present. Maybe Nessie was trying to save him. Maybe Nessie was like, why are you in the water? Get out of the water. This is dangerous. You're a human. You can't breathe water. You can't swim. I can swim. So that's the first sighting. Then we have, you're going to like this guy's last name.
Yeah.
In 1871, D. Mackenzie.
Hey.
Of Balnain, which is a small village in the Loch.
Was it a capital K? Probably.
No.
No.
It's actually not. It was. Well, my handwriting's bad. It might be a capital K. It might be Mackenzie, son of Kenzie. D. Mackenzie of Balnain, a small village in the Loch, saw something that resembled a log or overturned boat, quote, wiggling and churning up the water, end quote.
I would also like to wiggle and churn up the water.
It was moving slowly before it disappeared at a faster speed. This account wasn't published until 1934, after popular interest in the monster picked up. So, he saw this in 1871 and had written it down, probably in a journal, but it wasn't ever published until 1934. So there's a decent chunk of time between when it happened and when it actually gets written down for the first time. So then in 1885, Roderick Matheson described something in the loch as, quote, the biggest thing I ever saw in my life, end quote, and said the neck was like a horse with a mane.
Okay.
So it looked, he's seeing like a water horse.
Yeah.
Like the movie. And then this is just a long list of sightings. 1888, we have Alexander McDonald. And he's from a village that's like super high up on the western shore of the loch. And he saw a large, stubby-legged animal, which is rude.
Oh.
Hey, she's short. Be nice.
Short queen.
She's a short queen. He saw it surface in a loch and swim within 50 yards of the shore where he was standing. He reported his sighting to the Loch Ness water bailiff, Alex Campbell. He described the creature as a salamander. Sidebar about water bailiffs. They are literally water cops in the UK, and I absolutely love that they're called water bailiffs.
I like the word bailiff.
Bailiff's a good name. But also, in 1888, Alexander McDonald was like, also, how does he know she has stubby legs? She was swimming.
And the water's full of cannons.
And she swam within 50 feet of where he was standing. How does he know she got stubby legs?
I have something to say.
Go.
What if he thought they were stubby legs, but they just disappeared into the water?
Oh, because he couldn't see how deep it was. She got long legs. That's really worse. I think that's worse.
That might be worse. I prefer short stubby.
See, I don't mind her having short, stubby legs. I don't like them being described as stubby. She's okay to have short legs.
Short legs, that's fine.
I just don't want them to be described as stubby. I also don't want to picture them as, like, spindly spider legs. That's horrible.
She's walking along the bottom.
Do not ever make that click-clack sound again. Spiders.
No. Okay, so remember the water bailiff? Alex Campbell?
Yeah.
Guess who makes an appearance in the sighting?
The water bailiff?
Water bailiff. 1933, Alex Campbell, water bailiff. And part-time journalist.
Part-time journalist?
You're gonna come to love Alex Campbell as much as I do.
Enough money as the water bailiff. So
I think journalism is his passion.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna learn to love Alex Campbell.
I'm so excited.
I love Alex Campbell.
What a guy.
Alex Campbell, water bailiff and part-time journalist, wrote an article for the Inverness Courier on May 2nd. This is again 1933, detailing a sighting by Aldi McKay. She described seeing an enormous animal with the body of a whale rolling in the loch while she and her husband were driving along.
Body of a whale.
Yeah, body of a whale rolling in the loch. I like that word. She's just rolling as they were driving along the loch. This was the first use of the word monster to describe the creature. Up until this point, it had been referred to as a sea serpent, water dragon, water beast, etc. Shortly after this, the name Loch Ness Monster began to stick. So here we have a quote from this article written by our boy, Alex Campbell. The creature disported itself, rolling and plunging for fully a minute, its body resembling that of a whale, and the water cascading and churning like a simmering cauldron. Soon, however, it disappeared into a boiling mass of foam. Both onlookers confessed that there was something uncanny about the whole thing, for they realized that here was no ordinary denizen of the depths, because, apart from its enormous size, the beast, in taking its final plunge, sent out waves that were big enough to have been caused by a passing steamer. So if you don't love Alex Campbell after hearing that bit of journalism, you should. Denizen of the depths.
I love him.
He's great. Just to kind of talk about how many sightings there are. There is a website that all it has on it is very brief Loch Ness Monster sightings. So I'm just going to read a couple of these just to show you kind of what this website has. It has who the observer is, when they saw it, what the motion was, and any description that they can provide of the creature. That last one was in 1933. This is also in 1933. We have Alexander Shaw and Alistair Shaw.
Brothers?
No idea. That's all we have. We just have names.
Got it.
Sometimes it'll say like Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. I'm going to assume they're brothers. Brothers, cousins, father, son, something along those lines. They're family of some kind. This is from May 11th of 1933. The motion that they saw was a wake, then a hump moving faster than a rowing boat.
Okay.
So pretty fast. And the description was 8-foot hump like a log.
Interesting.
But it was moving quickly, so it probably wasn't a log, is their assumption.
Yeah.
Another one from 1933, we have Miss N. Smith, so she didn't give her name.
N as in Nancy.
N as in Nancy.
Got it.
But probably not Nancy.
Probably not Nancy. Well, it might be Nancy,
It could be,
but she just didn't give her name.
I'm just trying to make sure I got the letter right.
And this was August 5th, 1933. She described it moved circling, so it was like swimming in a circle and then submerged. And she saw one hump the size of a rowing boat. And I have pages and pages and pages printed off from this, the most recent of which on my notes was from 2011. So, like, and this covers from that 1871 sighting of D. Mackenzie through 2011. And you can report your sightings to that website. It will be in the show notes. Now we're going to get into some of the more known sightings. So those first ones are the less well-known ones if you're not, like, into Nessie lore, right? Mm-hmm. These are the ones that people probably know more about. So we've got also 1933. 1933 was a great year for the Loch Ness Monster.
Very popular year for the Loch Ness Monster.
So 1933, not much going on in the world. I mean, the Great Depression and stuff. But
Great Depression, it's between World War I, World War II.
World War I, World War II. The Dust Bowl's going on in the States, I believe.
But
it's still going on
in Europe,
at the time.
we're pretty
In Europe,
chill.
Nothing going on. So what are we doing? Looking at monsters in a lake.
As you
should every day of your life. So then we get George Spicer and his wife. Okay, this is a
S-P-I-C-E-R.
S-P-I-C-E-R.
Okay, here, can I interject? There were things happening in 33. The world was watching Germany descend into a dictatorship.
Oh, right, that is happening at this
point.
point.
Like, Hitler came to power in 1933.
Oh, shit.
And so, like, there was a
rise
of
was
fascism.
like, what if...
Yeah.
So, like, it really could be, like, a flap.
It could be a flap.
Kind of happening of, like...
That psychic ripple that we talked about.
Yeah, that psychic ripple.
That we talked about in the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
If you listen to the trailer.
Hope you took notes.
Hope you were paying attention. If you weren't, it's okay. We'll talk about all of it again. So,
episode, probably.
33, there's a lot that goes on, like 33, 34 for Our Lady Nessie. George Spicer and his wife saw, quote, a most extraordinary form of animal cross the road in front of their car. So this is interesting because Nessie's not in the water. She's out and about. She's on the move.
I thought in general depictions she's got front flippy flappies.
Right.
Okay.
So that's why this is an interesting one. They described a 4-foot-tall, 25-foot-long creature with a long, wavy, narrow neck as long as the road was wide. It lurched across the road towards the loch. Spicer described it as the nearest approach to a dragon or prehistoric animal that I have ever seen in my life.
I like to think
lots of...
What year was this again?
33.
33?
Because lurch would go with the not really tactile front feet.
Not actually walking. Can't... Yeah.
A flip-flop.
Like a seal.
Yeah.
Or a walrus.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. What's that word for how they move? There's a word for that.
I don't know.
Galumphing? Galumphing.
Yeah. She's galumphing. She galumps. She galumps her across the road. I put a little aside in here. So after his quote about this being the nearest approach to a dragon or a prehistoric animal I've ever seen in my life, I said, duh, Spicer. It's not like people see either of those regularly, my dude. So,
I love that.
This is the nearest to that I've ever seen before ever. Or, do you see these things often? And this was just the closest to one of those things? Anyway, it had a long neck which moved up and down in the manner of a scenic railway. So, like he said it moved up and down in a straight line, like a rail pump.
Okay.
He claimed it had an animal in its mouth. Yeah, the neck moved like that. An animal in its mouth. Okay. So it was getting food. People claimed that sightings increased in the 30s due to a road being built around the loch, allowing for tourism in a previously isolated area. But the loch was hardly isolated before the 30s, and the road had been there for decades. It just got improved in the 30s. So, like, there had always been a road around the loch. It's just now a nice road. Like, it was traversable before, but now people were going for drives and that kind of thing, so they were more likely to be out on the road.
It's probably the increase of people having cars as well.
True. So then, 1933, we've got Hugh Gray, who took the first photograph to allegedly allegedly depict the monster. It's blurry, and it has been noted that if you look really close, a dog's head can be seen. He had taken his Labrador for a walk, and there is the assumption that the picture is actually showing his dog retrieving a stick from the loch. Others claim the image shows an otter or a swan. The original negative of the photo has since been lost, but in 1963, Maurice Burton, we're going to talk about Maurice Burton a lot too, came into possession of 2 lantern slides, contact positives from the original negative, which he claims depict a, quote, otter rolling at the surface in a characteristic otter fashion. So I'm going to show you guys that picture really quick.
I love the phrase characteristic otter fashion.
Yeah, characteristic otter fashion.
Because
You too roll around in the water in a characteristic
I'm an
otter fashion?
girly, though.
Okay, so this is the picture.
As somebody who has spent time around otters, like that is...
There is a characteristic way that they roll around.
They, like, otters just do that. They roll around at the top of the water and they... That is...
Chris has the picture right now. Chris is currently looking at the photograph. After you look at it, I'm going to tell you guys what I see, because I don't believe that this photograph is the Loch Ness Monster. Unfortunately, a lot of the photographs that we have, I don't believe are the Loch Ness Monster or have been proven to not be the Loch Ness Monster.
I don't know what it is, but I don't think it looks like an otter. It looks weird. I've never seen this photo before.
Yeah, I have.
Well, yeah, I know you have.
Not before, like I saw it before doing these notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is one that not a lot of people know about. Because it's been pretty much debunked, so a lot of people don't even, like, it's not even on the Wikipedia for Nessie anymore.
I see.
Like, you have to go looking for it.
Yeah.
It's definitely not.
It's a dog.
Yeah.
It's a dog. In the middle of that, I think it's a dog. In the middle of that picture, it looks like the dog's face.
You know, I see, like, an animal face.
It looks like a dog with a stick in its mouth that's, like...
That's exactly what I think it is. I definitely think, in the middle of the picture, there's a dog's face, and then there's a stick in the dog's mouth, and it's swimming. Having seen a dog do that a lot, I think that that's happening there.
I can absolutely see that.
Yeah. So this is from 1934, next year. I've got Arthur Grant, who's a motorcyclist, who claimed he almost hit a creature on the road. He described the creature as having a small head on a long neck, looking like a cross between a seal and a dinosaur. Specifically, a plesiosaur, is what this guy said. So it's 1934. There's lots of new... Dinosaurs are a big deal, right? Like, we've got lots of new dinosaurs coming out. This guy's like, I saw a plesiosaur. Maybe it's that. The creature saw him and crossed back to the loch. He dismounted his motorcycle to follow, but only saw ripples in the water. He drew a sketch that was examined by a zoologist, Maurice Burton, who we talked about, from Hugh Grant, who saw the picture and was like, that's an otter, who once again said this was an otter. Paleontologist Darren Neisch suggested that Grant saw either an otter or a seal and exaggerated his sighting over time after the Loch Ness Monster became more and more popular. Which is possible. Here's his drawing. The caption says, the Loch Ness Monster as sketched by Mr. A. Grant. It's listeners, if you haven't looked at the Instagram, picture in your head the Loch Ness Monster. You've got what he drew. Pretty much.
No, what I would describe that as is that is an otter's body.
Yeah, it's an otter's body with a plesiosaur head.
A swan's neck.
Yeah.
And like a little golf ball size head.
The tail is very ottery. And it does have, she's got actual legs for the back legs. She's got chonky legs for her back legs, and she's got flippers for the front legs.
Yeah.
Is what he's drawn here. She looks really silly. We're going to talk about the most famous photograph now. The surgeon's photograph.
Like
the photograph. The surgeon's photograph. Which was from 1934 as well. So same year, right? So we get the dog photo. Just kidding. The dog photo's in 33. Then we get the sketch in 34. And now we get the surgeon's photograph also in 34.
Which is, I would agree, by far the most.
If you've seen a picture of the Loch Ness Monster, you've seen the surgeon's photo. In fact, I say in my notes, most famous photo claiming to show the Loch Ness Monster. It was supposedly taken by Robert Kenneth Wilson, who was a GYN in London. The photo was first published in the Daily Mail on April 21st, 1934. Wilson refused to allow his name to be associated with the picture, which is why it is known as simply the surgeon's photo. He claims he saw the monster and snapped 4 photos, only 2 of which came out clearly. One is the famous photo, the other is more blurry and appears to show the creature diving back below the water. Though skeptics claim the picture shows driftwood, an otter, a bird, or some sort of plant. The image is considered hard evidence of the monster's existence for 60 years. So for a long, like until the 90s. I was born the year after this photo was debunked. Like, that's how long this was going. The image is almost always shown cropped in a way that makes the monster appear really, really big, and the ripples appear like waves. Uncropped, it shows the edges of the loch, providing some scale, making the monster look smaller and the ripples look like ripples. Analysis of the original image fostered further doubt in 1993, so actually 2 years before I was born. This analysis found a white object in every version of the photo and was deemed to be the cause of the ripples. So there was something else that was causing the ripples, not the thing that they determined to be quote-unquote Nessie in this picture. Since 1994, most agree that this was an elaborate hoax perpetrated by Marmaduke Wetherell, which is the coolest name I've ever heard. How dare he hoax? The object in the image is reportedly a toy submarine with a head and neck made out of wood putty. The other image is believed to show an earlier attempt at the hoax with less sophisticated monster. So now we're going to look at the picture of the surgeon's photo, which when you know that it's a hoax, it's like, yeah, that's pretty clearly a hoax. So I could only find the cropped version online, so I don't have the version that shows the banks that make it look small.
I feel like
yeah, that's
there she is.
Okay, I've seen this cropped one. However, I have never not thought it was a large anything.
Yeah, it's always felt small.
You've thought it's large, or you've thought it's small?
I've always thought it was small.
Yeah, that's fair. It does, like, so the problem is, if you're looking at this picture and you aren't a water person,
yeah,
that does look like it can look like it's a big thing.
We're water people.
We're water people. We know what waves look like versus ripples.
Water school.
Versus
water school, but like even as a child, like
yeah, but
looking at that photo,
you grew up here.
Yeah, I guess so.
You have access to water.
That's
like,
true.
And this is the other thing. Like, this is being published in the Daily Mail.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's being published in the newspaper. Yeah. So Marmaduke Wetherell faked this picture with like his nephew's toy submarine. So then Maurice Burton makes another appearance, our zoologist friend. 1938, we have the Taylor film, which was captured by a South African tourist, G.E. Taylor. The film showed something moving around in the water for 3 solid minutes. Maurice Burton got a hold of the film and did not show it to any other researchers. He concluded it was a floating object and not an animal. Man, do we hate Maurice. Maurice out here being like, it's an otter, it's not an animal. I stole this video and now no one else can watch it. So it's entirely possible we can't get a hold of it. It's from 1938, so it may not be anywhere. There's another hoax photo that was Peter McNabb took a photo of the castle that showed 2 long black humps in the water. The photo wasn't published until 1957, so it was published 2 years after it was taken. This is from 1955.
Sketchy.
Yeah, and people have claimed to debunk the photo, saying it could be a wave phenomenon from fishing boats. Others claimed it's a hoax entirely and that the photo is doctored to appear how it appears. So then we get the Dinsdale film. So the Dinsdale film, aeronautical engineer Tim Dinsdale, a science man. So Dinsdale filmed a hump crossing Loch Ness, which he described as reddish with a blotch on its side. He said when he started filming, the object began to move. It appeared to be moving on its own. Others claimed the, quote, hump looks like a boat, and when the contrast is increased, a man in a boat can be seen. Discovery Communications produced Loch Ness Discovered in 1993, which included a digitally enhanced version of the Dinsdale film. The person who did the enhancement noticed a shadow in the negative that was not noticeable in the original developed film. This shadow, after enhancement, appeared to be the rear body of a creature underwater behind the hump. Before I saw the film, I thought the Loch Ness Monster was a load of rubbish. Having done the enhancement, I'm not so sure.
Ooh.
So that's pretty neat.
It looks like a man in a boat, but behind the man in the boat.
No. So after the enhancement was done, some people claimed that if you futzed with the contrast, you could see a man in the boat. After a professional enhancement was done of the photograph, they found that you can see the hind body of a creature behind the hump. So that person was like, I thought it was stupid until I did this job, and now I'm not so sure.
Got it.
So that's like pretty big. Now we have another great picture that I have a picture of. We have the Loch Ness Muppet from 1977.
Oh.
Because all good things should have a Muppet
Yeah.
movie. Or
So there's this guy named Anthony. Anthony is a magician and a psychic, and he claims to have summoned the monster out of the water and snapped, quote, some of the clearest pictures of the monster to this day. He later described it as an elephant squid, claiming the neck was its trunk. Fun fact, elephant squid isn't a thing.
No.
So it's not that. This image has been deemed a hoax due to the lack of ripples around the neck, and the name came from how staged the monster looks. The Muppet of Loch Ness. I will show you now the Muppet of Loch Ness.
Oh my gosh.
Just gonna look at her.
What a derp.
Go to our Instagram. There are no ripples around it.
Incredible.
My favorite part is that at the bottom, there's some whites. There's like some bright white that isn't a reflection. It's just bright white on there, like where they didn't paint it because they thought it would be underwater.
Yeah.
In this hoax photograph. So she's a hoax.
Um.
So far, the only pictures that we have seen.
We should try to summon her.
Hoaxes. Right now?
Not right now.
We don't have enough water for her here.
Maybe she can be little and go in my cup.
That'd be cute.
We could go to the beach, but she's a freshwater. We have to go to lake.
We could go to Livingston.
Okay.
That's not that far.
Okay.
So that's the Muppet, our girly Muppet. Now we've got 2014.
Oh.
The Apple Maps photograph.
Oh, I don't know if I know about this one.
I have the picture.
Okay.
I think I know about this one.
2014, an image on Apple Maps showed a 30-foot-long creature at the loch's north end. Possible explanations include a boat wake with the boat missing due to the image stitching, because that's how the map photos are stitched together, seal-caused ripples, or floating wood. So there's a couple of different, like, this is what this was, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So I'm going to show you guys the picture from Apple Maps. I have the link to the Apple Maps picture as well. I like this one. I think this one is the most interesting of the pictures because it hasn't, like, Apple Maps hasn't come forward and been like, oh, here are the, like, not stitched together pictures to show the boat.
Right.
And there's no boat in the picture. So I think the
Oh.
most interesting thing is this is not a shape that we're familiar with the Loch Ness Monster being. This is more fish shaped.
It's a very fish, especially the head. It's
Yeah.
very turtly fish.
It's giving coelacanth a little bit.
Yeah.
Like she's very fishy.
Okay, so
which is why it looks very wakey.
I remember this photo coming out.
Great.
Because
it was 10 years ago. Like it's in our memory.
Yeah. So to me, this really does look like wakes, but like there's a shape in the middle that looks like it's giving off the wakes.
Okay.
Like it does not like the wakes themselves look like a fish.
Yeah.
But I don't think because what I'm seeing
is there something in the middle that's making those wakes.
Is essentially something up towards the front that is
in the fish
making that fish head shaped wake. There's something just behind it that is making that second longer weird shaped wake that looks like the fin. And then it looks as if there's like one long wake at the back. That like to me looks like a
tail wake?
Like a tail wake, but like a side to side tail. A caudal, if you will. Or like a snake.
Okay.
Interesting.
That's what I'm seeing. Like I don't see
I love that.
Like I see the fish shape that you see.
Yeah.
However, that is not what I think the creature is. That looks like wakes.
That's fair.
But
I just like that the shape looks like that.
It's a fun shape. I do like the shape a lot. You know what? It would make a fun tattoo.
It would. Okay, we're done with pictures. That's the end of me having to throw my phone over to you guys. Okay. So now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the scientific explanations that there have been for like what people are seeing. Which I don't need my notes for that because I just know it. So a lot of them, people go to Loch Ness every single day.
Yeah.
And most people come away from Loch Ness saying they've seen the Loch Ness Monster.
Of course.
A lot of people who are tourists think they've seen the Loch Ness Monster. And a lot of what those people are seeing is going to be an animal of some kind, not the actual monster herself. It's going to be a native animal.
Mm-hmm.
Or logs. Or boat wakes. Because the shape of the lake, it's really long and narrow. Like, it's 20 times as long as it is wide, right? So the way that these ripples work is the wake of a boat or whatever, the wakes of anything will hit the shore and then bounce back. And so that creates these weird looking ripples and waves that people are seeing, and they're thinking they're the humps of the Loch Ness Monster. That's really, really common. So, yeah, a lot of what people are seeing is going to be, and there are otters, so, Burton was right.
Lame.
Yeah, like, there are otters. A lot of the pictures that people are taking could be of otters. People who
I think
go, and the other thing is
otters as an animal can be very large. I think people forget that because they think of like cutesy
right, they think little
otters.
guys.
Right. Otters are river otters, especially.
They're pretty big,
and they live with more than one of them.
right?
Like,
So if you see a bunch of humps, you might be seeing a pack of otters.
Yeah, a pack of otters all swimming around and rolling and
right. Now, I need this to be very clear. I believe that the Loch Ness Monster is real.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the theories is that it's just a big old sturgeon.
Yeah. Big old
just a big fish. And like, so sturgeon can get huge, like enormous. And most people don't know what a sturgeon looks like. But one of the documentaries that I watched that I can't figure out which one it was, they did a thing where you can find DNA, like remnants in water.
Yes.
Of where something has swum.
Right.
Right. So they've done scans of the lake, and they haven't ever found anything massive enough to be the Loch Ness Monster. They've done dives. There's a guy who built a submarine who was like dedicated his life to finding the Loch Ness Monster, and he's never found her.
Poor dude.
Yeah, I know. I feel really sad for him. I can't remember his name off the top. But so they did these latent DNA scans, tests of the water in Loch Ness, and there was DNA that they couldn't identify. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's Nessie's DNA, because we're going to get to my theory in a minute. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's Nessie's DNA.
Yeah.
It could mean that that is just an unidentified species, because the lake is 740 feet deep.
It's big.
It's dark, and we haven't been down there all that much to see any new species. Mm-hmm. We already know, like, they've discovered new species of eels in the lake.
Oh.
Yeah, not recently.
In the loch?
In the loch, sorry. In the loch.
I'm just
freshwater eels.
Making sure that I'm on the same page.
Yeah. In Loch Ness, they found...
How big eel?
Not super big eel. They did... That was one of the theories, was maybe Nessie is a big eel.
Maybe big eel.
Maybe big eel. So, the main, like, theory that people have about Nessie is that she's a plesiosaur. Somehow.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's what most people who believe in the Loch Ness Monster... that she's a dinosaur. Now, is she somehow a several millennia old dinosaur? Or is there somewhere, somehow, enough of a breeding population of plesiosaurs for her to be a just current dinosaur that somehow survived extinction, right? Both of those are believed things.
Right.
Now, there's a lot of people who believe that maybe there are some caves deep down in Loch Ness that go out to the ocean, and that these are creatures like bull sharks that can survive in both fresh and salt water. And maybe they go out to the ocean to breed, they come back, they live in the lake. Problem is, we would see a lot more of them were that the case. My thing is, a lot of people write off the plesiosaur theory because it's kind of crazy, right? Like, it's a little out there. Because either you have to believe that there's a several millennia old dinosaur chilling in this lake.
Or you have to believe that there's multiple dinosaurs
that there's
survive.
Yeah, that there's a lot of dinosaurs there's a lot of dinosaurs.
We just haven't seen the other one.
Ever. And there's only one who lives in this lake. Like, maybe every single lake monster is a plesiosaur, and they all go to the ocean to mate, have babies, and then one moves back in, and that's who Nessie is. And her great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother was the one from 565, and the one that we have now is the one that we have now. There's skeletons of dead plesiosaurs at the bottom of the lake.
Well,
who knows?
That just wouldn't make sense.
No.
Because, like, if there were, like, 7,
right,
and they all came out of their lakes somehow.
Caves. The theory is caves. The theory is underwater caves.
They swam through caves to get out to the ocean to breed, and the new ones went back.
Right.
They would all be so inbred.
Right, exactly. There's not nearly enough. The population would have died off by now.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't hold by the plesiosaur theory. Now, you may be thinking, Sarah, what is your theory about the Loch Ness Monster?
Mm-hmm. That is my question.
That's your question. Great, we're going to get to it. So it's changed over, doing my research, because I wanted there to be a dinosaur in Loch Ness.
Oh, it would be sick.
It would be really cool. I've never thought there was a dinosaur in Loch Ness, but I really did want her to be a, like, living, breathing, physical entity that lived in the lake.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't know if that's possible. I do think that there are plenty of undiscovered species in that lake because of the size, the depth, the darkness, all that kind of stuff, and the fact that they have found unknown DNA in the lake.
Right.
Now, could any of that be Nessie? I don't think so. I don't think that there is, because she's huge, right? She's supposed to be really big. I don't think that there is enough food in the lake or around the lake to support Nessie.
A megafauna.
A megafauna, which is part of the reason why we don't have a lot of megafauna left.
Right.
Right? Like, we don't.
Mooses.
We have meese. The plural of moose. Meeses. And I just think that that's, it really, really, really does put a damper on the, like, joy of if Nessie is real or not, right? Because it's like, I'm sort of a scientist in some degree, right? I like to pretend I'm a scientist.
You're an archaeologist.
I am an archaeologist, and I know that is science, and a lot of people don't think I'm an archaeologist and an anthropologist. Science. Nessie, I don't think is a physical entity. Now we get into the weird woo-woo shit of what I think Nessie actually is.
Excited.
So we talk a lot about ultra-terrestrials, which are beings from another dimension outside of time and space that we know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe Nessie could be that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or, here's my favorite. This is what I actually, like, in my heart believe Nessie is.
Okay.
Nessie's the ghost of a plesiosaur.
Mm-hmm. Haunting Loch Ness.
Haunting Loch Ness.
Oh, I love that.
I do love that. That is.
I think that Nessie is a remnant of a beast that existed in that body of water when that body of water was not contained. And that's why she's often seen by the edges, is because there weren't edges. Like, she was an ocean-going creature, right? So I think that my personal favorite is that I think that Nessie, you're going to also notice a through line with a lot of my thinking of a lot of cryptids. I think that Nessie is the ghost of a plesiosaur who lived in that body of water back in the before times. And she's sticking around for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know what that means. But that's my general thinking, is that she's either an ultra-terrestrial, which feels like a cop-out at this point for me for believing stuff, because I feel like everything can be an ultra-terrestrial, and that's just like, if I don't know, the answer is ultra-terrestrial.
Yeah.
If we don't know what it is, the answer is, it's an ultra-terrestrial. We don't have to think about it any further. But I think that Nessie's a ghost.
I love that. I think I have to agree with you.
That she's a ghost?
Yeah.
Or that she's not physically real?
That she's not physically real. 1. 2, that she is some sort of ghost or ghost-like entity.
Yeah.
I know eventually when we talk about Bigfoot, we're going to talk about this again.
Yes.
But the idea that, like, Bigfoot is not a physical creature and is instead, again, like a ghost or some sort of, like, protection spirit. Like, she really could be.
Yeah.
Essentially.
I feel like Nessie might be, the opposite of what the old water beast story was, because the water beast story was a scary monster designed to keep you out of the water. I think Nessie is a ghosty there to maybe keep people safe. Maybe she's there. Maybe when you see Nessie and that makes you not want to get in the water, maybe that's keeping you safe from other stuff in the water that's not super safe.
Yeah.
Like big eels. Mackenzie, what are your thoughts? Your final thoughts about the Loch Ness Monster? Have I taught you anything?
I think there's a lot of the background that I didn't know. Like, I certainly didn't expect how long people have been
seeing her.
I would agree. I would agree that I think she's an entity of some kind. Whether that is spiritual or, even if she's like this is gonna sound weird, like a residual haunting.
Yeah. Which is kind of what I'm saying she is.
Like, even if she's not ultra-terrestrial, sent there to do a specific thing.
Yeah.
She's she's just vibing.
Yeah.
And I think what I like the most about her, she's not violent. A lot of things we talk about cryptids or
with the exception of that
stories,
first story.
For the very first story, which again we don't know how doctored that was or was not, right? We don't know how accurate that description is.
Right.
What I would say is a lot of times when we're talking about cryptids, and we're going to see that throughout the podcast, but usually your first encounter story is real violent, or there's a violent tendency that moves through all of your stories.
Or it's at least scary.
Or there's a spooky factor.
Yeah,
Nessie, for me, is a very, comforting, casual, calm,
she's just there.
Cozy cryptid.
She's just there.
She's just there. And she's just vibing. She doesn't want to hurt anybody. She doesn't want to bother anybody. She's just chill. Sure. Even in, your Scooby-Doo where, it's supposed to be scary. The actual Loch Ness isn't scary. It's the people that are trying to portray her as scary, right? Or Nessie is just one that I think is the most comforting. Is a weird thing to say, but she's just a very cozy, comforting cryptid.
I think a better word would be accessible. She's the most accessible cryptid, and that she's not scary. You can make TV kids shows about her. She doesn't have this dark, sordid history. She's just kind of a silly little guy in the water.
Yeah, because she very much gives off. It's very much the same energy as oh, we're gonna go out on a boat and we're gonna go look at whales.
Yeah, it's whale watching.
See a whale.
It's whale watching, but mysterious.
But a little weirder.
Did you learn anything, Chris?
Yeah.
Did you learn something?
Yeah,
Great.
I got to see the interesting photos.
Those photos are fun.
And learned about otters, or not learned about otters, but learned about Nessie being otters a lot of the time.
I do want to end this.
What did you learn? Since I know you're really into Nessie, what is something that...
So I didn't know about the OG story, the 565 story. That I discovered in this. I learned a lot about the lake in doing this, which was an interesting kind of deep dive that I took, was learning about the loch itself and why it lends itself to these kind of stories, right? Because not every lake has a lake monster. It takes a specific kind of lake to have a lake monster. The lake has to be a little bit mysterious.
Yeah.
And so learning all that stuff about Loch Ness was kind of cool. It also was neat to learn the origin story of the lake, why it has its name and that kind of stuff, because it's a very mythical thing, having those origin stories of not just there's a lake here, there's always been a lake here. It's no, this spawned from a well that was blessed, and a woman was trying to save her baby, and then the well overflowed, or this goddess cursed her handmaiden to become a river, and then she burst the banks of her river and became a lake. Those are just really fun.
Yeah.
And I really liked that kind of stuff. I also didn't realize how many quote verified sightings there were. I didn't go through a third of these. There's a lot, and a lot of them are those just basic name, place, or name, date, what happened. But then there are some that are long stories that are interesting and have more information about it. I encourage everyone to go read more. But I'm going to leave you with a bit from one of the documentaries, the Mythical Beasts documentary. They were talking about the folklore of Nessie and why the folklore, why has this story lasted so long, when we can quote unquote prove that she doesn't exist, right? Mm-hmm. And it has evolved because people want to be part of a story, and they want to believe that magic can still exist and that there's something out there. That's what people want. People want to be part of a story. They want to believe in magic. And I think that because Nessie has that lack of danger, lack of violence in her, it is really easy to let yourself believe in Nessie.
Yeah.
And that's why I like Loch Ness Monster. That's everything that you need to know about the Loch Ness Monster. Make sure to come back next week to find out what other phenomena we're going to be talking about. Thanks for listening.
This podcast is for weirdos.
Are you a weirdo?
Thursdays are for the phenomena.